Most players are comparing themselves to like the best player on their team when they're like the 25th man on the roster. Like, I'm not comparing myself to the top goal scorer on the team when I'm the 25th man on the roster. I'm comparing myself to who's at the 18th spot. Can I beat him? Boom, I beat him. Now we're focusing on that 11th player.
And a lot of kids have the ability to play, but either people on the outside telling them that they can't, or watching themselves compared to someone else and they're saying that they can't. A big thing also, as I said, is comparison. I think a lot of players compare themselves to other players, which of course is healthy to a certain amount. I think that's the difference.
I think the first thing you have to do is the fundamentals. And once you have the fundamentals, you have to build on it and become exceptional, right? Someone said, if you want to be extraordinary, you got to do the ordinary extra.
Many players think that they have certain qualities when they don't yet. Or even when they have those qualities to a decent amount, they're like, I don't need to work on my left foot passing, it's already good. But in reality, you're making 2 out of 3 passes. There's always room for every single player to keep improving. As I said, those top players are still working on what they can do better to keep improving that. So I think if you want to be a top player and you want to go from the amateur to the higher level, it's doing the extra.
My first question to you is, what makes a great player? Let's start with the youth game, since a lot of the people who watch this are parents and youth players. Let's start from the youth perspective. What makes a great player in your opinion?
Yeah, right from the start of it, I'd say it's right from the mentality. That's the first step. And a player can have it all, but if they don't have the mental side, it's difficult. And sadly, that's where I see a lot of players that struggle. And that's the one thing I want, hopefully, to change in the future with players and to trust themselves. Hopefully, it starts from coaching, it starts from parents, it starts from themselves. Just that mental side, it can change. And I think that's the most important thing to start out, is that players need to learn what they hold, and learn what their abilities are, and trust that that's better than other players. And I think that's the first thing that makes a great player, is going to say, I'm a good player, and being confident in yourself. And of course, difference between confidence and arrogance, of course. But at the same time, if you can be confident in yourself, then I think that's going to definitely set yourself up to want to continue to keep working and do better and better.
So a couple things there. Let's break down like what is the mental aspect of the game in terms of, you know, for me, I look at a lot of these other pages, or young kids trying to help other young kids, and they're just like, it's just general things that you hear, different quotes that you hear. It's not the prize, it's the process and all this stuff. Well, let's really zoom in here on the mental side of the game. What do you mean by the mental side of the game, and what are some important factors of the mental side of the game that can help kids watching?
Yeah, I think right away having a good mental side would mean that you are able to stand on your 2 feet and say, I know what I'm doing. And a lot of kids have the ability to play, but either people on the outside telling them that they can't, or watching themselves compared to someone else and they're saying that they can't. A big thing also, as I said, is comparison. I think a lot of players compare themselves to other players, which of course is healthy to a certain amount. I think that's the difference between saying that I'm a decent player or I'm a good player, is saying, oh, I'm decent because this guy is better than me. But in reality, you don't need to worry about that player. Make yourself the best that you can. And that's going to start from walking in and saying, I'm ready for whatever I'm about to do, and that I know why I am here and I know what I'm about to do.
So let's say the first aspect of that is the understanding that you deserve to be here, number one, and whether you do or you don't is completely up to you. I mean, you've heard it. It's like, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And it's like, might as well wake up and just believe that you can, right? And so what you're saying basically is like, when you walk into the changing rooms, believe that you deserve to be there first and
Definitely.
foremost, or don't walk into the changing rooms.
Definitely.
And confidence goes up and down. I believe that you control that based on your preparation. And so for me, it's all these things are connected, like the mental aspect, the technical aspect, all that stuff. If I'm physically in a great place, I'm going to be more confident. Period.
Definitely.
If I'm at a better technical place, I'm more confident. Period. And so one of my big things is like, if you're not confident, it's on you. It has nothing to do with your coach and what he said. It has nothing to do with the teammates and what they said. making sure that you are taking care of yourself first, and in all those areas that we talked about, making sure you're taking care of yourself first, and making sure that when you walk in, you have the correct framework of I deserve to be here. And the other thing you said is saying that I can get the job done. So that's the other part of it is like take like Michael Jordan, take the shot. Just take the shot. And if you miss, you learn. If you make it, you're a hero. Like that's how it is. And I think talking
Yep.
a little bit about this is the fear of failure amongst kids nowadays is insane.
Definitely. And I think one thing on that is that big quote that a lot of people know: you miss 100% of the chances you don't take. And
Yeah.
sadly, a lot of people are scared to take those chances, whether that's in an actual game and getting an actual chance, or you have a trial or something like this, and you're getting ready to walk in. You're like, I'm too nervous. The thing is, you're taking a chance that maybe you a month ago or a week ago didn't even know about. There's things that people need to remember realistically. And if you get a trial and all of a sudden you're thinking about it, you're nervous, just remember you wouldn't have had that trial if that person didn't approach you, or if you didn't message that person and you didn't know about that opportunity before you got that message, before you went out and reached out. You didn't know that was going to happen. If you got a response from someone and you didn't know that you were going to get the response and you're a bit shocked, it's like, just remember, I got that chance because I did something about it, or at least I was doing something right. And now you have that chance. You have it for a reason, and don't let it go because you didn't know about it a week ago. You didn't know about it maybe a month ago. You didn't know about it at one point, and all of a sudden now it's right in front of you. Don't miss your chance.
So we're talking about the mental aspect of the game. We're talking about making sure that you understand that you deserve to be here. That's why you're here in the first place. You might be the 25th man on the roster. When I first started, I was the 25th man on the roster. When I signed my first pro contract, I was 25 out of 26 players. That was where I was. And my only goal was to get to the top 18. Once I was in the top 18, now we're going for that top 11, right? And so it's like setting those goals. And I think what you were saying about the comparison aspect, most players are comparing themselves to like the best player on the team when they're like the 25th man on the roster. Like I'm not comparing myself to the top goal scorer on the team when I'm the 25th man on the roster. I'm comparing myself to who's at the 18 spot. Can I beat him? Boom, I beat him. Now we're focusing on that 11th player. And just setting those types of goals. I think we have a problem now in society now, like you said, the comparison aspect. Compare yourself to
Definitely.
the right people. And I think one of the things that I've always said is if you're not playing for your current club team, you should be focusing on starting for your club team. And just the same process I'm talking about. If you're on the
100%.
bench for your club team, get on the starting 11. Once you get in the starting 11, solidify your place and then work to be that, that top five and that top three player. Because
Definitely.
once you get there, it's sort of subjective, and most of the time it's forwards. Like forwards are going to always get paid the most, and they're always going to, they're always going to be on the poster and all this stuff. So just focus on getting in that top 11 and just solidifying your spot. And so that's what you were saying about the comparison piece. Compare yourself to the right people. Young players out here that are
Definitely.
comparing themselves to Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi or Mbappe. I'm just like, you're not even playing for your club team. So let's bring it down here. But on the mental aspect, I want to talk a little bit about like the what does it really take from a mental aspect to being a professional footballer? Like I didn't say it in the intro, but you're a professional footballer currently, and I was a professional footballer. So for you, what is the thing that young players don't understand about the mental aspect of becoming a pro versus maybe being an amateur?
Yeah, I think the mental side, when you are going into the higher and higher levels, is only going to get harder and harder on yourself. And that's why it's only the people who are at the top are the mentally strongest. Those players who are, even if you're going to go to the very, very top and look at those Messi, those Ronaldos, those Hollands, any of those top players, and say that any of them are not doing well mentally, you can't say that. They're always at a strong mental point. They miss a chance in a game, and next thing you know, they're back in the next one. And that's just from a scoring side. Or, I mean, in the side, if you want to look as a defender, even with Van Dijk, player like that, who he has not the best half of the season, comes the next season and no one's beat him in a one-on-one the next season. And people need to remember that although you might have one little downfall, there's still always time to go back up and to be remembered, and to make sure that if you're going to have something go wrong, let's get back in and do it again even better the next time. So when it comes to getting to a higher and higher level, it's going to be difficult, but you need to be mentally stronger than everyone. And as well, in your own head, to say, I am here for a reason. As I said before, I'm here for a reason, and I know that I have my ability, and you need to keep trusting in that, especially from a not just the player side, but from the parent side, watching a player saying, don't compare your kid out to a professional player if they're not a professional yet, and say, you know what, this kid is still getting better every single time he touches the field. And from that side, say, give them, how do I say it? Give them a reason to be happy, a reason to be there, and don't just keep pushing them, and just they're gonna fall over if you keep pushing them. But if you can tell them in the right direction that they're doing well, I've seen this today, you did this well, even if you know they didn't have a good game, you don't need to go and attack them for it. They're a kid, and that's all that they are at the moment. They're still learning. Every single time they touch the field is a learning point. So if the parent side, it's just saying, I'm gonna push them just a little bit, but I'm not gonna push them all the way over. I'm just gonna tell them that they could have done this a bit better, but you know what? They did this part well, and always pointing out things, because that's going to help the kid's mental side. And as we are talking about, the mental side is so big.
What is a pro to you? What does it mean to be a professional?
I think that it's going to go down to not just ability, but knowing someone to get there. And as well, that just starts from having the confidence, as we're going to keep rotating around to, but having the confidence to say, you know what, I am where I am, and now I see someone who can possibly get me a little bit higher up. Is that what I can do? And say, I can do that. And I think it also will take apart the not only that side of it, but also when you have the ability, and the ability, just we'll go into that for a second. Having the ability doesn't mean you are the best dribbler in the world, or you can go and take on a player every single time you get the ball. It just means that a lot of the pros are not just the one thing and that's all they have. Every pro, even if you take a player like Neymar and you say, you know what, he's a great dribbler, but that's not all that he is. If I tell him to play a one-touch pass back to me, he's not missing it. If I tell him to take a touch to the left and play it with his right foot, or do it the opposite and play with his left foot, he's not missing a pass. And that's because a lot of people forget that although they have those great qualities, they also have the qualities that are needed to be there. The qualities that are needed to be there is definitely an all around. You need to be able to play with your left, play with your right. You need to be able to not just take on a player to your right every single time. You need to be able to go either direction, or be able to be confident enough to, if you open your hips, to hit the shot, not just stop because it's on your left foot.
You said multiple times, you said be confident in your abilities. And I think one of the problems, or one of the things that young players, parents and coaches even need to look at is what are your abilities? Do you, like, here's the thing, do you even have abilities? And what I mean by that is you might be 10 to 12 years old. You can have, if you work really hard from 10 to 12, you could have a very, very good level of the fundamentals, what you're talking about. Michael Jordan talks about fundamentals all the time. The fundamentals of basketball. He was like, if I don't have the fundamentals, then I can't be Michael Jordan. Like, having, like, his base was insane. Like, he never missed a pass. Like, I saw some stats, whatever. He only had like 100 turnovers in like 12 years of basketball or something like that. Something crazy like that, where you can tell that he just had the fundamentals. The ball didn't get stolen from him. He didn't miss passes. He hit every layup. And then he was able to score the winning shot, or score that amazing shot. And the problem is that players are already, they think they've mastered the basics. And when I try to test them on the basics, I'm like, here, 10 short passes, but I'm going to put pressure on you, miss every single pass. I'm like, you don't have the basics down. So I'm retraining 16, 17-year-olds on the basics, when 10 to 12, you should be really, really mastering the basics. And, what are the basics? One touch passing, two touch passing, receiving, simple things, right?
Yep.
And so mastering those fundamentals. But you kept saying, like, confidence in the abilities. And if you're watching this, the reason that you're not confident in your abilities is because you don't have the abilities. You have to get those fundamentals and get those abilities. And
Definitely.
so what I've always said is, I think that the difference between a pro and an amateur is that a pro is like 99% on the basics. An amateur is like 60 to 45% on the basics. Like, when I pass you a ball, there's a 60%, 45% chance of you doing the basics properly. And so, for me, I think the technical aspect is like 90%. Do you have the basics down? and I think that will help your confidence immensely.
Definitely. No, I agree on that. And it's crazy the amount of messages I get that are kids that are saying they're telling me what they need to work on, and the first thing that they're typing is confidence. And I'm saying, you're 10, like they type their age first, and I'm looking at it and I'm saying 10, 11, 12 years old. Why are you struggling with confidence? You need to stop worrying about the confidence side and worry about the dribbling, or sorry, the doing the correct techniques, the passing, and then learning how to do the things that every pro does naturally. Learn how to do those just without hesitation. Learn how to play it correctly on the ground with your left foot. Learn how to do it with your right foot. And then from there, the confidence is going to come. A lot of the people are like, oh, what can I do about my confidence? How many times do you get extra training in? Are you doing something if you mess up in a game multiple times on a bad pass? Are you going after and doing the extra passes on your own? Are you going with a wall and working on it? If you don't have a partner, there's always ways. There's always ways to do something. And the thing is, people take it for granted and they're like, oh, I messed up in a game. You know what? I scored my goal. But the thing is, next game, are you messing up another pass? Next game after that, do you mess up another pass? Maybe it's not down to, yeah, I'm scoring one a game, but can you also get it down to where you're not only known for just having it happen every game, but also say, you know what, he's always going to go, and he's very all around sound. He's always doing the right things. He's always in the right place, and don't just get noticed for one thing, but say, I have the characteristics to do everything I need to at a basic level, and now it's starting to get more and more advanced. I'm working on it more.
Yeah, I think we go too early. This is just me. I think we go too early into the V turns and the learning the Maradonas. And for
Yep.
me, it's like trying to keep the game fun from the age of like 15 to 19 is like, to me, I'm like, and that's why I asked you about the professional aspect of things. I tell everyone, once I knew in my mind I wanted to be a pro, the game stopped being what I considered like fun at the time. It wasn't fun
Yeah.
anymore for me. It was, this is the job I need to do, and I need to get it done, regardless of how I feel. I have a client right now who actually broke both of his legs in one game. Insane.
Well,
And he's coming back now. And I told him, I said, you're going to be up and down. Like every single day. Like one day you might come back and you might get your cast off and you're like
yeah.
excited. You're like, finally, this, that, and the other. 2 days later, you're like, this is horrible. Like my friends are out there playing and I'm watching this game and that. And I said, get the job done regardless of your feelings. Like right now, you're down here and we have a long road ahead. Just do what you're supposed to do today. Check the box. And that to me is a pro. And I think injured players who have been injured know this better than any other type of player. Is when you're injured, you can't not do the things you're supposed to do. You have to do them because
Yep.
otherwise you're not coming back. And so, if you're watching this, you've been injured, you know what I'm talking about. I broke my shoulder and I was out for 6 weeks. I was literally like, today, like I didn't even go to training, bro, because I didn't want that mental, like watching my friends
Yeah.
train and wanting to be out there every day. I'm up 6 o'clock, physio, working out for 8 hours, or sorry, not 8 hours, 2 hours, coming back home and making sure I'm resting. Like that, like you understand what a pro is when you get injured and you have to slowly work your way back. That's what a pro is. You get it done regardless of how you feel. And I think young players right now, it should be fun when you're young, 10, 12, 13. It should be fun, 100%.
Well,
But find fun in the boring things. Find fun in getting the practice early and getting those touches in before the session. And then when you have the session, excel, compete, find competition fun for you. You might go home and you might lose, but like that mindset of like, I should have done this, and I just can't wait to get back tomorrow to show everyone that I can do this, or working on the things that you're not good at,
yeah.
making it like a little math problem almost. Like, I didn't get that equation. I need to figure out how to do it better. And
Well,
that's where the fun is. It's not in goofing around and like doing V turns and like making things up just to make it quote unquote fun. It's about the process and doing the things even when you don't feel good.
yeah.
Um, for you, what are some things the kids watching right now? What are some I know we touched on it a little bit, but like what are some of the technical things that they should be working on when we talk about like the basics and the fundamentals?
Yeah, first of all, I'm gonna just talk about my page for a second with that, because
Yeah,
that's why on my page, if you ever look, I don't go put skill moves for kids to try and go and you have to do this skill move here. I leave the creativity in a drill when it comes to skill move to saying this is the fun part. This is the part where you did the hard work at the beginning of that drill. Now it's time to do your skill and get your shot off. And it's
Yeah.
never setting a boundary. At the same time, it's making sure that you're doing something that's game realistic. The amount of times where I take a player in a one-on-one setting when I'm doing my one-on-ones, and I'm seeing them do a skill move that's just so flashy, and I'm like, that looks so cool. I'll stop them and say, I like that. And then I'll say, you know what? It's fun to see it. At the same time, do it against me. Now they'll try and
Right.
do it. Now win the ball, and I'm saying, you weren't protecting the ball, or this happened wrong. Now let's do something that's more realistic. Don't take away the fun from it. But at the same time, can you do something that's more realistic that's going to help you in a game? Because I'd rather a player who comes with me learn something and say, you know what? I'm going to do a skill move in a one-on-one against you. I can't just give you access to the ball. I have to actually do something realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, no. The realistic aspect of things is the most important to me. Like everyone talks about this, but then I look at the drills, and the drills aren't necessarily there. Like, let's take a step over, for example. Like, are you going at that person and doing a step over for real? Or are you, just doing 2-3 step overs and then playing it back to your center back type thing? You know what I
Definitely.
mean? And
Definitely.
so for me, it's like the realistic aspect is the most important, because guess what? We're all here training for the game. We're trying to be the best for the game. We're not here to be the best at doing a step over or the best. We're not trying to get the best first touch. We're trying to get the best first touch for the game.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
and if you don't know if you don't know what's happening beyond that first touch, or you don't know what's happening beyond that step over, then it's an irrelevant skill to me. If you don't know what to do after that V turn, it's irrelevant to me that you know how to do a V turn, right?
Definitely. No,
It's
100%.
like knowing addition, but like unless you use that addition to then be better at like calculus or algebra, then it's just basic nonsense that I could overcome. As a defender, I could easily overcome. And so it's exactly what you're saying. As you're saying it, I'm saying to myself, try that to me. And you literally
Yep.
said that perfectly. Um, so yeah, like you said, your page, 100%. Everyone go check out Dustin's page.
Thank you.
What are some of the basic foundational things that they should know? Like the 3 things that they should know from a basic footballing basic standpoint, technical.
Yeah, if you're starting the game, it's going to be the first thing, if we're going to break it down to a player who's just learning how to play. I like to go in this way. I don't say, okay, let's teach them to dribble first. I say, let's learn to pass first. So when the ball comes to them, they don't have to say, okay, I know how to run with the ball. It's first,
Right.
learn how to pass the ball, learn how to stand still and pass the ball. After that, learn how to move with the ball. So it's breaking it down into first passing, then being able to dribble the ball. And once you start to get dribbling, now is the part that kind of differentiates the very beginners to a little bit more advanced, is getting your head up and dribbling. That's one thing that changes the game so much, is being able to have your head up. And then from there, it's going to be, of course, you're going to get into the basics of their position, or starting to get them towards being able to know how to do everything right. So even if they're not a player who's has a direct position right away, is saying, okay, well, I'm going to teach them how to shoot, even just in the basics. So I'm going to take the basics, but the first thing is always going to be the passing. Next is going to be dribbling and aim to get that head up, or in another word, ball mastery, because doing ball mastery stuff is learning how to get your head up and being able to say, I know the ball well enough. And then the dribbling part. And then my last thing is, I think, something that is different, but it's going to say, when I receive the ball, is my decision already ready to do the next thing? The basics is also, not the direct basics, but starting to get your decision making slowly correct. Because if I get a ball and I'm only taught how to dribble, I don't know how to receive the ball and already know that I'm going to play the ball back because someone's coming to me. So can we start to slowly get our way into making a correct decision and saying, I'm going to receive the ball and I already know I'm going to pass it, or I already know that I have the space to dribble. So I think getting that spatial awareness is also going to be important, which is also going to come from knowing how to get your head up before you receive the ball and when you have the ball.
How important is fitness to football?
Yeah, I was raised with the fittest player on the field, or the fittest
Yeah.
team on the field is always the better team. I was raised with that, and especially growing up in club football, club soccer, I was always raised where we were doing so much fitness. And that's just naturally down to saying if you want to be a good player on a team, you need to be fit. You can't just be able to play 5 minutes of being on the field and say, "Oh, I'm tired," because the amount of players who can play for 5 minutes is almost everyone. But now it's getting more and more late in the game. Can you be mentally tough enough to say, I'm ready to keep going and be able to push yourself? I think fitness is important. And I think that if you are going to be touching a ball every day or as much as you can, the fitness is going to come along the way. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you are able to last in a game. That's the most important thing, is whether you're playing 20 minutes each half, whether you're playing 40 minutes or in the above levels, if you're playing 45-minute halves and you're playing a 90-minute game, can you play until that 90th minute? And those players who can't make it 90 minutes can't go any further. They can't keep playing at a high level because there's going to be someone who's going to be more fit than you. And you can't let that happen. You got to be able to say, you know what, that guy can play 90. I can play 90 an extra time. You need to be able to do that extra stuff. You need to be able to know how to keep pushing.
How important is it to train tired? Because the one thing that I see, I do this with all my clients. I do fitness at the beginning because from what I experience as a player is when I play, first of all, if you're not fit, your confidence is going to be low.
Yep.
Like
Okay.
period. Because I've gone into games knowing that I'm not fit, whether it's coming back from an injury or my very beginning of my pro career, like just getting used to like the level. I would come into the games. I was not as confident as I was later on in my career because I was like, can I last? Well, can I last to halftime? Because there's like that 30-minute window, the 30-minute mark where I'm just like hitting the wall at the beginning of my career. And if you have that, you're like pretty much stressing about it. Like that's where the nervousness came for me, is like, can I last the entire game?
Yeah.
But the other part of it is the fitness while training. When you play a game, for the first 15 minutes, maybe you're at 100% energy. And like the ball comes to you, you're clean, you're playing, your technique is on point. But as soon as you hit that 15-minute mark, now you start dropping. It's just like FIFA, where you see the level, the fitness level slow down. That's how it is. And but a lot of coaches and stuff like that I see are doing only technical stuff. So by the end of the session, they're at like the players at like 75% energy, and it's like, okay, you
Yeah.
can do it while you're at 100% energy, but can you do it when you are at 30%, 20%, and you can turn your brain up? I always tell my clients, I say, when you get tired, there's nothing you can do about your body. Like your body is like a battery. Your battery's going down. Okay. But your brain, you can turn your brain on more, but you have to concentrate more. You can turn your brain up,
Definitely.
focus more, and your technique has to go up while your fitness goes down. And
Yep.
that's how I train. And so, yeah, what do you think about how important is it to train tired?
Yeah, I think it's so important. And even not just myself, but with the players again that I work with, I always tell them one thing. And this is when it comes to stamina, when it comes to building a fitness, this is something that I love to always tell new players, or at least anyone who's interested in hearing about it, when it comes down to building stamina. And not just having it, but also when it comes to building it. If you're going to go, I'll give an example. If you're going to go on a 10-minute run, and 4 minutes of that run, you feel great and you start to get a bit tired, but you still feel good. And let's say now you get towards that 6 minute mark of that run, you got 4 minutes left, and now you're dead. And instead of slowing down, those 4 minutes are where you're building your stamina. You're never building your stamina when you are feeling great. If you're running and you can run for 15 minutes and you feel great for those 15, you're not building stamina in those 15, you're building it in those last 2-3 minutes when you're pushing at the very end to get where you want to get, or you want to finish your time. That's when you actually build your stand-up. It's the same thing for doing a curl, for example. If I'm doing curls in the gym, of course with dumbbells or whatever you want to do with,
Right.
I'm not building my muscle only on the way up every time. I'm also building it on the way down, which is a great example to saying I'm not it can't only be when you're feeling good that you're building it. You got to also make sure that you're doing the extra to where you're actually hitting it. Same thing, let me give a better comparison. You're doing if another comparison to the gym, you're doing chest press, you're doing your lifts, you're up on your last 5 and you
Yeah.
feel great and it gets down to you can barely do anything more. Even if you can barely do just a little bit more and you push that little bit more on that last rep, that's better than you did before. You do 10 reps and you're like, okay, I got to 10 and I felt great. Can you push a little bit more to get a half rep in? Because that's where you build your strength. You don't build it when you finish your 10th rep and you're like, okay, that's where you maintain your strength. The building is where you're actually tired or your muscle's tired and you're actually doing a little bit extra. So when I am working with my players, I always tell them that the little bit extra is where you're actually building. So if you're tired, and we're doing a drill where you're constantly doing maybe dribbling, for example, or something like that, and you get onto your last 2 reps and you're absolutely dead because, of course, I like to train until they're tired as well, then push a little bit extra, and I'm saying you got one more, and they do their one and they are dead. I say, okay, one more. And of course, the player hates hearing it. They're like, oh, I thought I was done. But at the same time, that's the mental side to say, I'm not done. I still have one more. I am dead, but you know what? One more to push. That's the
Yeah.
moment that I love. I love telling players, you know what? It's time to do one extra. And although they're dead and they could barely do it, you know what? Doing at least half speed of doing one extra than you thought you were going to do is still better than just stopping. 100%. I'd rather a player go through the emotions of having to do one extra than saying, okay, you're dead. You know, we'll stop. We'll take a rest. We'll do it again next time. It's like, no, let's do one extra. Push the one as hard as you can. Give me everything you can. We'll rest, and that's when you reset again. And when you're ready, we can go again.
Why do players need a personal trainer? Why do they need a personal coach?
Yeah, a lot of times these days, a lot of players, it's different than before. A lot of players were just told do extra work on the side on your own, which I still emphasize is so important. But at the same time, personal trainers involved in youth academies or players who are involved in youth academies always have someone they're working with. If you're working against someone or you're pushing yourself and you want to be better, there's always something that you can improve on. Even those top players in the world, you might not see them with doing extra training and stuff. They might not post it on their social media. At the same time, they're doing it. In my opinion, I always like to believe that I'm thinking that Ronaldo and Messi and all those players are doing that extra work. And it's so important that even though they're at the top of their game, they're not just saying, okay, I'm already at the top, I'm going to just rest today. No, they're doing the extra. And if you want to be a top player, you need to do the extra. And sometimes, a lot of the time, there's ways. I think pushing yourself on your own is good, but when you have someone else pushing you is even better. I think not just for the getting pushed side, but also that someone else can see your flaws that you didn't even notice, or something you're doing every single time, your habits, and you might not even notice that you had that habit. Striking the ball differently than you're supposed to, maybe hitting a long ball and you're hitting it incorrectly. You might not be able to break it down yourself, but someone else at a level who's played above you or someone who is watching you do it can say, you know what, I see what you're doing wrong. Let's slow it down. Let's break it down. Let's do it again. But this time I'm going to give you a tip. And I think that's so important because every player who's looking to get at a higher level is going to need to have someone who is pushing them. And that's where a trainer comes in. I think it's so important these days to have someone because there's so much information online, but at the same time, it's much different to have someone pushing you who's telling you what to do rather than just saying, okay, I need to go to the field and I need to do this because you might lower your level for a minute, but that trainer's not going to let you.
I think there's a few reasons why I think you should have a personal trainer. I think one of them is if you like you said, there's a lot of things online, right? So like, for example, based on the information, what you're supposed to do, right?
Yep.
Let's take last year, for example, right? Let's say a young player is like, you know what? I want to score more goals, or I want to get fitter, or I want to make this team or that team. Well, let's look at it last year. You made that goal. Did you achieve that goal?
Yep.
No? Okay. Well, what are the few reasons that you didn't achieve it? Well, you weren't doing the right things. You weren't training at all. Like you were like, I want this goal, but you weren't training. Okay. You started training and then you stopped training, which means your accountability is off and means that you can't hold yourself accountable, which means you need a trainer.
Yep.
The other one, like I said, the information is wrong and you were doing the wrong things. So you don't have the right plan. So you need someone who's actually been at the level that you want to be at to cut that process. Or then the last one is the fact that you're just not good enough and you need to be pushed. Like you're saying, that last extra. Like you might look back at your year and you're like, I trained every single day. Okay, but what you did is you went out and you did some ball work and you jogged around the field for a little bit.
Yes.
And then you're like, well, why am I not scoring more goals? Well, you didn't push yourself. You didn't really do the real sessions. And when players train with me, I always say, come out, free training, first one. If you can keep up, then you can be a part of the program. They come out, they are dead. And I'm like, I thought you were training last week or last summer. Yeah, I was told this, that, and the other. I'm like, well, it doesn't look like this is real training. When you come in here, this is real training. And I tell them as well, I say, I want this place to be like a safe place for you to just go all out. Like I want this to be a place where, it sounds weird, but I want this to be a place where you can come to die. Like, it's okay. In the game, everyone's watching. It's not a good place to die, Like, it's not a good place to like empty your gas tank. But here, I want you to like put your mind aside and just go all out here. And if you do that enough times, you will be successful and you will be able to go out on the field and not die, right? And so that's what I tell these kids is like, come here, come in this environment, and I'm going to push you like to places that you can't even you've never been physically, like in the hard sense. Like these are the moments you're gonna remember is this coming out here and running, doing 4 sets of 1 mile, like your quickest time, 4 sets of 1 mile. Like, oh, I could never do that, Coach. You have to do that. It's okay to do that here. And so the reason I asked about the training while tired is that's the real game. That's the war. Like, are you training for the easiest competition you're gonna see, or the medium competition you're gonna see? Are you going to train for the best competition you're gonna see this year? And are you trying to dominate the best player in your league? And that's the difference in the training. Are you trying to get better, or are you trying to dominate? And so one of my last questions for you is sort of the idea of what type. We started off by talking about what makes a great player. On the other side, what can players do to become a great player? And we talked about the mental aspect. We talked a little bit about the technical aspect. What are some of the other ideas? For me, I have the four pillars: the mental, the physical, the tactical, and the technical, in that order. And it's funny because a lot of coaches do it the opposite, where they focus on the technical the most. And I'm like, no, that's the last. That's like like, I know how to hammer and nail. I know how to build a house. And then the last part is buying some great tools, right? Where now people, they buy the tools and they're figuring out why can't I build a house? Well, you don't have the mental aspect to build a house. You don't have the tactical understanding of the layout of the house. You don't have the ability to actually build the house because you're out of shape. But then you buy the tools at the end. So what are some of the other things? What is the overall package of a great player when it comes to, I want to go from being an amateur to a pro? What are the things that I need to work on?
Yeah, I think as we've been on about mastering those basics, and after you start to master those basics, and first of all, it's not easy mastering the basics. You can't just go and say, okay, I did a week of passing my left foot there. No, it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to be a lot of extra work outside of team training. This is a lot about what you and I are talking about is outside of team training. You can go and be in team training 3 times a week, but what are you doing when you're not in team training? In 2 hours out of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example, what are you doing outside of that 2 hours every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday of team training? Are you doing training in the morning to get yourself ready? Are you doing light stuff to make sure on those Tuesday and Wednesdays to make sure that you are ready, at least getting ready for that game day? Even on that game day, are you just saying, okay, I'm going to walk in this game? Or maybe are you going out and just passing the ball into a wall for 10 minutes and saying, okay, I feel better because at least I touched the ball today. So first of all, it's going to be very difficult to master those basics. But the first thing is that you need to do that. You need to make sure that all of those basic things you master. and making sure that you can do the passing with your right foot, passing with your left foot, dribbling with your left foot, dribbling with your right foot. So I think that's so important. And after, of course, those basics that we already talked about, I think it's starting to have the correct decision making. Sorry about that. I think being able to not just after the basics, in other words, making sure that you can do the other things correct, and making sure that after your basics are ready, that you are able to start to watch what a good player has, their qualities, and learning from those good qualities, and saying this player does this in that moment. And it's not just someone who's against you, it's maybe someone who's against you that you think we can learn from rather than just comparing yourself to. But I think it's also very important to say, for example, watching, if you're a striker, watching Lewandowski, watching those top strikers and saying, I'm going to learn off of this, and taking those characteristics and trying to apply it to yourself, learning it, and then working on those. I think if you're going to learn to build as a player, you can't just say, okay, I did my basics. I feel very confident on that. Now what's the next step? Oh, I think that I already have it. Reality is, after those basics, you're not at the top yet. You need to keep doing the extra work that you are lacking in a team environment, maybe, or in a game environment. A lot of players, they finish what they're doing in a team environment, and they might, as I talked about earlier, mess up on multiple passes in the game, and they go home and they're like, okay, I'm going to go work on my shooting. Why would you? Yeah, you can work on your shooting a little bit, but aren't you going to work on your mistake you made in the past games? Aren't you going to work on what you need? And on that being said, that's why you come to people like us, at least, who do training and on the side, helping players, and say, as a player, and you go and you say, I have messed up on this in my past games. This is what I want to work on. And of course, it's so important being able to say to yourself, I need to work on these things. And it's very difficult for many players. Many players think that they have certain qualities when they don't yet. Or even when they have those qualities to a decent amount, they're like, I don't need to work on my left foot passing. It's already good. But in reality, you're making 2 out of 3 passes. Can we now get it to 3 out of 3? There's always room for every single player to keep improving. As I said, those top players are still working on what they can do better to keep improving that. So I think if you want to be a top player and you want to go from the amateur to the higher level, it's doing the extra work. It's working when you are tired. And everything else that we've already said is just the beginning of it. There's so much a player can continue to work on. And even if you think that you're hitting, maybe you score a goal on your one chance in a game, can I go and can I work on a different chance that could happen? Can I work on that same chance again in training? Because you know what? I scored it once. Doesn't mean you score it every time. You keep working on it. And I think it's so important that a player can do that extra work and be able to say to themselves, I need to do this because I know it can be better. Or not taking it, of course, you don't want to take it too far and say, this is all I need to work on. At the same time, adding it into your game, into your mind to say, I messed up on this, let me work on this, and let me work on doing the things I am doing wrong in a team environment on my own.
I mean, that's very, very well said. I think you summarized the entire interview very, very well. I think the first thing you have to do is the fundamentals. And once you have the fundamentals, you have to build on it and become exceptional, right? Someone said, if you want to be extraordinary, you got to do the ordinary extra, right? And
Yeah, I
so
like that.
so for me, like going through everything you said, my thing is that like, I took this course one time on like, what is it? Hospitality, right? And they said basically when you walk into a hotel, the bed is made, the bathroom's clean, all these different things that you would expect, right? You don't notice that the bed is made. You don't notice that everything's cleaned and dusted and all that stuff. But you notice when it's not, right? You notice
Yeah,
if the bed is not made, you notice. If the bathroom is not clean, you notice. If something was left on the table, you notice. But you don't notice if it's not, right? That's the ordinary stuff. You have to do the ordinary and understand that no one's going to notice. No one's going to notice that you have a great, two-touch passing. No one's going to notice that you're communicating with your teammates. No one's going to notice that you're good at crossing the ball as a wing. No one's going to notice that stuff. But they're going to notice if you are not good at those things. So make sure you get those things 99%. No one's perfect. 99% down. And then you have the other side of things where, all right, what do you finish with? Like, Van Dyke is a player that is like super, basics are on point,
Yeah,
but then he scores a goal, or then he makes a big time challenge every 5 games. He makes a big time tackle. Like these are the moments that you are preparing for. You have the
yeah,
fundamentals down so that you're on the field at all times, and when that moment comes, you're ready for it and you tackle, right? Or if you're a forward, just laying the ball off, keeping the ball, making the runs, etc. And then that one time you get it, boom, you score the winning goal. But you can't get there, like we're saying, you can't get there if you're not fit, if you're not tactically aware, if you're not mentally, tuned in, and if you're not technically good. If you're not technically good, then you're not going to score the 89th minute goal anyway. So make sure you're technically on point, and then everything comes from that. The confidence piece comes from that. The like I said, when I create that like dungeon effect where you come in and it's just like it's not fun. But these are the moments that create the fun moments. These are
yeah,
it's the yin and the yang type thing. It's like I have
or
to destroy myself in training so that I can, be happy in winning. And like Muhammad Ali said, like I trained my entire life like a slave so that I can live like a king. And my coach
yeah,
used to say the same thing, like, from Monday through Friday, we work and we train like slaves so that on Saturday we can walk around like kings. And I'm like, okay, that's how you have to look at it. Every single day has to be a grind. And going back to what I was saying about the being a professional, every single day has to be tough. Every single day and tough for you one day might be getting out of bed. Yesterday
in,
you had a tough workout. Dang, I can't get out of bed today, whatever. You got to do it. You got to check the boxes. You got to get those 3 things done today. And quick note for like personal trainers and stuff like this from my perspective, create a system with your clients that allows them to be successful in life and not just in football. For me, I have my clients on an accountability program. In the morning, I check in with them and I say, "How are you feeling today?" They say 1 to 5, and they tell me a quick sentence why. I feel like a 4 today because yesterday I got in good work, I slept well, and today I'm ready to go. Perfect. And then at the end
well,
of the day, they have an evening number 1 through 5. It's only based on the getting their one thing done. They have to give me one thing every single day that they're going to do. I'm going to do my fitness program. I'm going to do my technical program. I'm going to do, with the one kid who's injured, I'm going to do my PT. Okay, great. And then at the end of the day, it's a 1 through 5 based on what they got done. So the first is an emotional response. The last one is an objective response. So
yeah,
regardless of what they give me at the beginning, it better be a 4 or a 5 at the end of the day. And that's how I
that,
try to do that. I try to do that and to create them a successful plan in life, right? So all these things that we're talking about, we could take soccer out of it and just say, hey, for life, this is right. This is what you should be doing. So any closing things that you want to talk to about that you wanted to say to the audience?
I mean, I think it's important to be able to know what you need, and then from there, taking it to, as we keep saying, doing the above and beyond. And it's going to be a lot of the time unnoticed, and that's what matters is that you're doing it when it's unnoticed. You don't need to go and post about it and say, oh, look, I'm at the field training, because a lot of the players who are doing the hardest work are the ones that aren't showing you. You can't go up to someone and say, oh, look, I'm did you see my post today? I was training. It's like, oh, cool. Yeah, I was trained too. It's like, but it's like, oh, you didn't post about it. It doesn't need to be, because a lot of the time, a lot of the hard work is silent, and it's tough, but not everyone needs to know. If you have someone who's there to do it with you, it's fantastic. But sadly, a lot of times it's going to be hard on your own. That's where the mental side comes. And I think it's going to be fun to, for both of us to hear responses on other people's challenges and kind of see, as I've already been hearing a lot, I get a lot of messages every day and hearing where people struggle, and knowing that it's going to say, this is where you struggle. I think it goes down to the same thing that it goes down to every single person messaging me. What extra work are you doing? And they're always going to have answers for that a lot of the time. But it's saying, are you doing the extra work? And now let's get that done if you're not. And if you are, that's great. Are you doing the right extra work?
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be great to hopefully hear after people watch this, or people who hear little clips about it, is saying, you know what, they're doing the work now that they heard this or maybe they woke up today and they now gave themselves a mental score, because I really like that idea. They give themselves a mental score, how they're feeling. They say, you know what, I need to get my jobs done today. If you want to get to a professional side where this is your job, then you need to make this sport your job. You need to actually treat it like you're already there and work like you're already there and be hungry enough to where you're going to keep pushing yourself until you are actually there, which is great.
Appreciate you coming on. Always a good chat, and we'll talk soon.